Hello, I'm Don Moores, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Over 150 years ago, the Republican Party was formed following a split within the Whig Party, including creation of the Know Nothing Party a long time ago. Will the success of Donald Trump result in yet another split in the grand old party? Mariana Cordier, a local attorney, will speculate about the Republican Party's future on our show today. The Metro system closed its rail operations this week in order to guard against a repeat of the fire that led to the death of a rider and to many closings in recent months. Brian Karem, executive editor of the Sentinel newspaper, has this story and probably so much more. Recently, we've seen research about how to improve pregnancy outcomes in African American women. Dr. Carol Garvey, former health officer of Montgomery County, is back on our show after a stay away. She's here to comment. It's great to have you, Carol Garvey. Primary election is next month, but there's still time to register to vote, or to get an absentee ballot, or to change your address, or even change your party affiliation. Alysoun McLaughlin from the Board of Elections is here with us today to tell us about this and the ways that people have the opportunity to vote. Mariana, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Wonderful to see you're green.
Yes, it's the little Irish in me.
There you go. This whole issue of whether or not the Republican Party, Trump, no Trump, conservatives, all this stuff, it's got its roots a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, everyone's thinking maybe this is the first time something like this has happened, and it's not. Back, the Whig Party had, internally the same kind of revolt, if you will, or disagreement with regard to what their beliefs are, what they want to go forward with. And so I think that this is an opportunity to see actually some very real history happen, and who knows what the Republicans are going to do at their convention.
Abraham Lincoln, I believe, was a Whig congressman.
Yes.
Before he became president many years later.
Exactly.
So what is it about parties I thought that it was the big tent.
Well, but
everyone
that's
can have
something
a fun time.
we've seen this happening. I mean, when we saw the debates when Romney was running, I mean, by the time the Republicans got to over the primaries and were running against the Democratic Obama, you had so much information and so much to love at the Republicans because of all the debates, how much they trashed each other and how they went after each other. How do you recover from something like that? And then they have their own
Republicans
opinion.
have had bigger problems. Look, I'm blaming Ronald Reagan. I think the schism started then.
That's true.
That there used to be a conservative, a more middle of the road, and a liberal wing of both parties. The Republicans have increasingly become the party of the right-wing racists. They spout things that no one in their right mind would want. They have a bully who's leading their charge.
That's true.
And so any normal American, even, and there are,
And
believe it or not, normal Republicans.
And
who
they're
go,
alienating
"I can't
the
handle
moderates.
this."
The moderates
There
that
are no
were
moderates.
there are no moderates.
They're-
They have left. They're not going to stay.
And they don't like the Democrats, but
No.
so where are they going to be?
Exactly.
I mean, the problem with the Republican Party is they've sowed hatred and dissent for the last 7.5 years, even blocking a nomination for the Supreme Court. What do you think you're going to grow?
No
But
Nelson
intolerance.
Rockefeller, no Jacob Javits.
No Eisenhower.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
some of the wait a minute. What about Teddy Roosevelt? There was a great Republican president. You don't have that now. You've got bullies and people who eat
And
things
I
off
think
their
the
face
biggest
on national
problem that they
TV.
have right now is that that's the identity that the party has resulted in forming. And so you have disfranchised a whole lot of people who don't feel comfortable anymore saying I'm a Republican.
So what do they do? They
and
come
what
out-
do you do? And that's where
Do they
I
vote or
think
not vote?
historically, looking back, it gives a clue that maybe this is something that will create a split. Maybe not. Who knows? This may not be the period
Yeah,
of
I
time.
think they're putting the cart before the horse, though, too. They
Yeah.
haven't even gotten to the convention yet. Trump has not won anything more than a plurality. So what they're really looking at is a first, second, maybe third ballot candidate,
Right.
and they may bring it together under the one tent, but without Trump. But Trump has threatened riots if he's not the, he's tried to bully his way into being the nominee.
Mariana, I read the Washington Post today, and a story of, or maybe it'll be out tomorrow, not sure, online of California, and that it may get down to California.
Right.
For the first time in a long, long time, because California always has its primary in June, and that California's delegates will be decided congressional district by congressional district, and so we'll have 53 primaries, just in California in the final week to decide maybe who goes forward. This would be crazy. Have we seen this in our lifetimes before?
I don't, not California in that way. No, I don't believe so.
Or any of this craziness. I mean, can you remember when it was this crazy?
No, actually, I don't think I've ever seen something quite so out of control is the only way I could really describe it, with what's going on with Trump and what's going on within that party, and then what's going on in the individual state primaries. It's really something to watch, because this is something that I don't think has happened in this way, with this technology focusing on it ever.
We have a minute left. I want to turn it real quick on the Trump and his calls or claims that Latinos are behind him. You have some Latino background.
I do.
Make the argument for Latinos who support Trump. Why would they support Donald Trump? Because he says he gets, and apparently in Florida he got a lot of support.
Okay, so clearly this is not my opinion. Okay, so
okay, we got
I
about
think
45 seconds left.
Right, Latinos are business oriented. They want to be successful in their businesses. A lot of them are small business owners. So they may, in not understanding everything, look at Trump as, wow, what a successful businessman, without really knowing anything about his businesses, how he's developed.
Or the fact that he isn't.
Or the fact that he really isn't. They just see a
went
rich,
bankrupt.
Trump with towers and all that. So they will assume that he will know how to make it possible for them to be successful in their businesses. That's the only thing that I can think of that they could be thinking. Other things that are very important to Latinos, of course, is family. Is
He's had several of them.
Right, and many of them are Catholic, so they're thinking about the abortion issue, and so there's a couple of issues that they tend to some be conservative Republicans.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's my guess.
Well, we can't wait to have you back, and let's see how this election unfolds, and so many other topics you come and talk about.
I'll come back when they're in November.
Thanks for that. Brian, what happened? Metro closes down.
Trump's fault. Oh.
So Metro closes down, and the world continued on. We're a day after now, and the day of this taping.
It is a day after. It was a historic event. Never in the history of the Metro had it been closed down for 29 hours for safety. Just because people were.
We've had snow. We've had snowstorms.
Yeah, we've had snowstorms. But to purposely shut the entire system down for 29 hours to look it over for problems because of the fire that happened, not just at L'Enfant Plaza, but the one that happened a couple of days ago on the Orange. And
then there are switching issues in the past. We've had crashes. So looking at this thing, good idea for safety's sake to do this?
It's and what it speaks to, honestly, is one of the biggest complaints against Metro over the last few years is a lack of leadership. Since it's you oversee the Metro by several different jurisdictions, 2 states, several counties, and cities, and the federal government. Having a strong person at the top saying, this is important, hasn't occurred until now.
Now,
Wouldn't it be-
people. One second, Carol. You've got a website here. People want to go. I love your editorials.
Thank
I
you.
love your stories. So, and your cartoons. What's the website?
www.thesentinel.com. Please. In fact, we've already gotten a lot of compliments on the cartoon this week, which was quickly done for the Metro.
Great. Yes, Carol.
Yeah, if they sent somebody down to the Metro after normal closing hours, middle of the night, not a good time to work, but if they sent somebody down there routinely, couldn't they do the maintenance?
That's a question that's
sequentially?
been asked and answered, and part of the problem is, quite honestly, is with other providers of public service in the area, they've cut back on infrastructure and maintenance over the last few years. So Obviously, if they had kept up with a systemic maintenance schedule, this wouldn't be a problem. The problem is they haven't had a systemic maintenance schedule. And there's, when the Alarm Plaza thing first erupted, one of the things that you found out is that they couldn't even talk to each other tactically, firefighters and Metro workers. I mean, there's just been a lack of coordination, a lack of effort. And the problem is we were a victim of our own success. I mean, when the Metro first opened, sleek, comfortable, everyone admired it, loved it, rode it, never had a problem. But, 20 years later, after you've not put any money in the infrastructure for 20 years, it's like overnight, people are going, oh my God, overnight it fell apart. And that wasn't the case.
It opened in the 70s. 40 years later.
Well, I mean, 20 years after they stopped putting money into the maintenance.
Right.
Back in the 90s, it did open in the 70s. It wasn't complete until the late 80s, but in the 90s, in the 90s, there was some money put into infrastructure, but systemically over the last 20 years has been the problem.
But Carol's point's right on in terms of the boringness of that maintenance, of preventative maintenance. It's difficult. I mean, don't we see this with our roads? Don't we see this with our bridges? Don't we see this with the infrastructure? The sewage pipes, the water pipes.
But you're right. It used to be, the joke was a day that went by without you having to swim down River Road because the lights were off, you couldn't catch the Metro. It was a day without sunshine. I mean,
really deteriorated.
The deteriorating infrastructure is a huge problem. The boring maintenance is part of it. It's the investment in the maintenance.
Right.
You have to realize that you have to invest in the maintenance of your infrastructure in order for it to function correctly.
But don't you get a vicious cycle? Because I would think that the ridership would go down when these problems occur. And if you had a reliable system that was always working, I would think ridership would be higher.
We've kind of taken the other. We've kept the ridership low and the cost high in order to maintain it.
Communicated.
People. Go ahead.
It's lower. They estimate that it's as much as 20 to 25% lower than it should be because of the maintenance problem.
I commuted downtown for 15 years. I rode the Metro, and in the 90s, it certainly was a whole lot more reliable, or at least I remember it that way.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to the Red Line collision that happened, that was the moment when I just quit riding Metro. I started driving downtown.
We have YouTube videos sent to us from our readers. I mean, there was one that I'll never forget. It's in a tunnel. It's on the Red Line, I believe. 50 miles an hour, and the doors are open, wide open. People are standing, gasping, taking video of it as the doors are wide open, and people are going, whoa.
I never experienced that. I never experienced,
I didn't either, but I mean, it has occurred.
Safety fear, but I certainly experienced the loss of reliability.
Got about 30 seconds left. What are any other thoughts on this,
or
anything else in Sentinel?
The biggest thing to take away from this was the fact that Wingfield, the guy who's now in charge, that he did the right thing. And if he continues to march down that road, then the future looks bright for Metro, and maybe we've hit rock bottom. If he doesn't commit to the infrastructure and maintenance, we'll continue to have problems. But by the simple fact that he did decide to close it, that he did put through all these inspections, and they did find as many as 36 different problems, speaks well of his stewardship of the Metro. So I go forward with the grace of God, go us all, but good luck, and thank God you're there.
And hopefully we get to Carol's points, which is regular and often.
You can't do it without it.
We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Carol, we've got some issues now with the African American birth rates, pregnancy rates, and what is that troubling news here? Because it's very
well. What's really sad is that infant mortality in African Americans is 2.5 times as high as in other racial and ethnic groups. And the frustrating thing about that is we don't really know why. We know some contributing factors, but we really don't know why. As rates definitely improve over the decades, white rates improve, black rates improve, but there's still a 2.5-fold gap.
Now,
is that across all socioeconomic?
It is, and for all groups, you're better off if you're better educated, richer, whatever. But a black woman with a college education still has a higher risk of a poor pregnancy outcome than a white woman with an 8th grade education. So those extra 8 years are not sufficiently helpful to bring the black rates down.
Or the obvious economic advantage.
Right, right.
You know, it's interesting too, when we look at this, the U.S.'s, our infant mortality rate and child mortality rates are significantly higher than many European countries, Japan as well, but we're infinitesimally low or tiny compared to places in the developing world. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that I guess we're closest in like D.C., for instance, and other places, we're closest to Jamaica, closer to Jamaica than we are to Norway, for instance.
Yes, but we have a more heterogeneous population. So if we take the white infant mortality rate, it's pretty close to Japan's and other more homogeneous societies. It's because we are mixed that we do, and locally the rate is higher in the district than in Montgomery County. But it's not really that the risk for any one individual is worse. It's that there are more African Americans.
My turn. What research?
And then it's Allison.
What research is being done, or what issues are you having in doing research to discover what is the factors or elements that are causing these problems in African American women?
Okay, well, of course, the socioeconomic status has some, but not a completely protective role. I mean, obviously, a college-educated black woman has a better chance than an 8th grade educated black woman. So demographics have a little bit to do with it. One of the things that's come out recently, or in the last few decades, is a concern about the biochemical environment of black women because of experience of racism. And there have been a lot of discussions of disparities in medical care, but it's not a question. We've looked into prenatal care. Black women receive a higher amount than.
Is it
how
genetic?
Come Latino women, for instance, are not as low as or have as many issues as the African American women?
Right, and Latino women actually have about the same rate of poor pregnancy outcome as white women. And even though they get less prenatal care than black women.
So is it a measurement issue? I mean, we're looking for the thing that is causing all of this, and we're just not asking a question that correlates to it?
Oh, I think we're asking every question that one can imagine. And one of the recent answers really is this racism, and there unfortunately there is still racism, and some of it is so entrenched that we don't even recognize it.
Well, the reason I was asking with Latino women, because a lot of Latino women have African American roots and genetics. So it's interesting to see how a Latino woman who actually looks more African American is doing comparatively to an African American woman without any Latino genes.
We've got about 40 seconds left. That's
if there's a
Okay,
difference.
well then I think what I'd like to do with that is point out that Montgomery County, has a SMILE program. You can get attached to any county program by dialing 311. But the SMILE program is a program which has African American nurses who provide mentoring for African American women. And this is through the pregnancy, through the first year of life, and they help with child safety and all kinds of.
Is that helping?
It is. The data are much better for the women who participate in this program. Higher birth weights, better breastfeeding.
And that's where we'll have to end on a high note. Carol, hopefully solutions will continue to be. We'll see continuing improvements there. And
I hope so.
And I hope you'll come back.
I will.
All right, thanks. Allison, welcome to the show. I think this is your first time.
Thank you, it is. I'm glad to be here.
So, election coming up. We've heard all this other stuff, and I noticed how silent you were in talking about all this partisan nonsense, because you guys are not partisan
Stay
at all.
out of it. We're the refs. I'm unaffiliated. I'm not affiliated with the Republican Party. I'm not affiliated with the Democratic Party. I'm an unaffiliated voter. We manage the process of counting the ballots.
One of the things this show has really worked hard to do is promote the need for voting. and we've had League of Women Voters on here quite a few times, your colleagues from your office, we would love to see 100% of eligible
Wouldn't we
voters
all?
come out.
The way that we get to 100% of eligible voters coming out is that, first off, you got to be on the list. You got to be registered. And where people have been watching TV in the other states, you got open primary states and closed primary states, we're closed. You have to be registered with the Republican Party if you want to vote for a Republican candidate for president, the Democratic Party if you want to vote for a Democratic Party candidate for president. April 5th is your deadline to make that choice.
All right,
So
wait,
independents-
whoa, wait 1 second here, please. There's so much information that people can find. That right now, I think on the screen, phone number, you got Twitter, you got email. It's all scrolling right now, hopefully, so people have no reason not to get fully informed about all this. Go ahead.
Go to any one of them.
One of the things that you said you've got to clear up, because it's one of the things we run across every time this issue is brought up. You're talking about the primaries. You're not required to vote Democrat or Republican in the general election. In the general election.
That's a really
Can you
important
please put the
distinction.
IC at the end? You sound like Newt Gingrich or those guys.
No, no.
Democratic.
You don't have-
Democratic
Very
or
important
Republican. There's an
distinction.
IC at the end of
Okay.
it.
All right,
Democratic.
you do
It's
not
very
have to vote for the
important.
Democrat
Right,
or
there you
the
go.
Republican who's running.
November, we always have much higher turnout. November, we always that's the end of the playoffs. It is November when all of the candidates are on the ballot and you vote. In April is when the political parties are really making their internal choices.
And that's why the independents only can vote for Board of Elections. They
Board
can't
of Education.
Vote for,
Right, Board of Education.
School board is
right.
the only contest if you're an unaffiliated voter, like me. I don't get to vote for a candidate for president in April. I make that choice in November after the parties
You know,
make
it's
their
interesting.
choices.
The official name is not independent. Decline.
Decline.
Have declined to
your
determine whether they're
declination-
Unaffiliated.
The biggest
Because there
problem
was an
that I
independent
find-
party at one point.
We cover this issue. We go out. We ask people constantly, what would it take for you to vote? We've hosted candidate forums. We've gone to precincts, done informal polling, and the people who vote are generally those who are elderly. Leisure World, man, they get out and vote.
Yes.
If you're in Twin Brook, not so much. If you're in Durwood, not so much. If it's an issue that affects you directly, you might be more inclined to vote, and most of them do not even know who it is that represents them. We try to promote that, and then they always ask us, why doesn't the government reach out to us more?
So there's Allison. Answer
there's
to
Allison
Come on,
answering
Allison.
that.
Today, our official voter guide and sample ballot is being printed as we speak. They're going to start hitting the post office today, and then they are going to be, over the course of the next 2 weeks or so, they're going to be delivered to everyone's household. And you can see when you open up that guide, it's personalized. We have 7 different combinations that you could see. And so whether you are registered with a political party, if you're registered in a certain congressional district to vote for those candidates, you'll see it on that mailer. If you want to make a change by April 5th, you can by going to our website.
But more to the point, what are you doing to make it easier so soccer mom and dad who's working 20 hours a day and mom who's working 20 hours a day has a chance to vote?
Honestly, we have to rely on the candidates, on the parties, on all the stakeholders in this process who spend incredible sums of money to reach out to the voters. We have a
there's
you have early
very
voting.
small
There's
advertising
early voting
budget.
Early
and,
voting.
and same-day
Yes.
registration. Those things that people are
So
unaware
that's what
of.
we focus on.
So when
and
does
we've
early
got
voting
this
start?
newsprint piece going out. You can take a look at that. Early voting is going to be starting on April 14th. It's the Thursday to Thursday before Election Day. Election Day is April 26th. 2 weeks before that, you have early voting, where we have 10 satellite sites where voters can go and vote.
And how late
but
do they
really,
open
right
at
now,
night?
you can request an absentee ballot. You can go to our website and request an absentee ballot. We will mail it to you right away.
So
you have to
don't
return
to
that
go-
ballot
you
to
don't
us
have
by
be
mail.
out of state in order to do the absentee ballot. You can do it at home.
Anyone can do it. You can vote by mail, you can vote early, or you can vote in person on Election Day.
45 seconds left. I want you to look in the camera and tell people why they should vote.
Oh.
Or no, tell them how they can vote. Not why they should vote, but tell them how they can vote. Real quick.
I will tell you why you should vote. You should vote because you are a citizen of an incredible nation, and it is a nation that is a democracy that rests on you. Our form of governance assumes that you go out and that you do your part and you speak up. And if we want to have the sort of government that we want, that relies on all of you, on everyone doing your part. So get involved, register to vote, make sure your voter registration reflects your choice of a political party, and then go vote.
And your vote counts.
Your
That's
vote will count.
Everybody says they don't count, and they do.
Your
That
vote will
drives me
count. We
nuts.
count every single absentee ballot.
And we count every single absentee viewer. So make sure you watch. I want to thank all of you guys.
Thank you.
What a great final thing. Great end, great beginning. Thank you, and viewing audience, for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores, inviting you to join us next week at this very same time.